Hi, welcome back to today's video. Let's just take a deep breath and have a calm video, as today we're discussing Olena, the god of moons. I feel like I should clarify a few things from my last video, as I did a bit more research on a few things. Sorry, I felt like I'm lagging. Well, we are changing Sunny Lagoon to Sunny Lake because lagoon is in fact classified as a body of water just barely cut off from the ocean. I believe it's a salty pool of water, and the Sunny Lake is a heated pool of fresh water overpopulated by plants. So we're going to keep it as lake for now, but if I can think of a better word than just lake, I might change it, because Sunny Lake doesn't have the same ring to it as Sunny Lagoon. But with that clarification out of the way, I think it's time we discuss Olena. So, Olena actually only comes from one word, from the word Mena, which means mother in Iranian. Iranian actually didn't develop as a language that much. Some pronunciations and words might have changed, and the writing system got a bit more complex, but really, if you go into the old scriptures, it kept kind of stagnated, surprisingly. Her pronouns are she, her, and just like the god of suns, she has a prominent influence on the modern civilization. Therefore, she got a binary instead of pronouns. So, just to clarify, of her earlier pronouns, it was Eri, Eris, and Eriself. So, while I might not use those as much throughout the video, it is good to note that those are still Eris's pronouns. So, let's talk about how she looks. Just like most of the gods, she has an inhuman kind of skin. It's a dark, it's a lighter purple. Don't know why I said dark. It's her hair that's dark. She has a light skin of purple, that reflects how the night sky looked in Asia. And her hair, which goes down to about shoulder length, and a common hairstyle within Asia is to have those kind of buns, to symbolize it's a common hairstyle for those of middle-aged women, basically, in Asia. But she had dark purple hair, which reflected the more darker nights when the moons weren't in view on those rare occasions. She had antlers, much like her sacred animal of the Jaggipi. More on that later. Long ears, mostly also another feature taken from the Jaggipi. Earrings, just accessories, and the collar you might see is similar in this pit crew as the one I gave to the sun. Do note that whenever I draw this myself, the chokers will be looking different, as they have different meanings. This choker is just a symbol of respect and not really much else. It's just that the culture back then was that those of high rankings would have more prominent neck jewelry, and then the yellow clothes is just the color associated with her. So, where did Olena come from? Well, she came from Asia, from the Torden Plains. As you can see on the map, I kind of just wrote out Torden Plains. Once I colorize this map, you can see exactly the territory. It's not that entire plain because there's still beaches along the coast, and up to the north there's it becomes a bit more rocky. But a good chunk of that middle part to the southern part are the Torden Plains, and Ashia is towards the southern part of it. So, what kind of climate is Ashia? Well, key characteristics is plains with abundance of flowers. It's a warmer climate, which is a stark difference between the mountain range that cuts off the middle part that we're used to. So while it might be more colder and rainy in the middle parts, and then the mountain range that I need to draw in, it's all part of the Dayton mountain range, comes in and cuts off that rain, and leaving the Torden Plains to be more warmer and have more of a sauna feel, as they have most of the sun, but also the moisture that's coming down from the mountains without most of the rain. It's also the most optimal point on this continent to see all 5 moons. Yeah, 5 moons. I need to figure out the measurements of this planet and the measurements of the moon, but I swear that the tidal waves, the waves and the tidal waves might just be a slightly bit bigger than what we're used to, but not enough that it's just constantly devastating coastal towns. It's just slightly bigger. So 5 moons, but let's just say they essentially work about the same as our moon together, not on their own. But yeah, from Aisha, if you look up at any point of the day, you can at least see 1 moon clearly. So, I don't think it needs to be said anymore, but her domain is the moons. And now let's get into the background, because, well, Aisha and Olena, they're kind of a special case than what, and I feel like I say that every episode, every video, but it's where, like, the way these gods came about are just, they all have a bit of difference, and they all stem from necessity, except this one, but necessity is always different, and the way that these towns treated their gods are always going to be different, because that's how culture works. Then I need to work that out. But let's talk about the background. Aisha is considered to be settled in the most fertile part of the Pronoun continent. Yeah, I named the continent. Hopefully I didn't do last videos, because if not, I forgot. But let's just say for now, not for now, it's officially the Pronoun continent. And they're finding themselves to be able to harvest many great harvests. Why did I repeat myself like that? But if you're familiar with history, you'll know that, like, in the Mediterranean area, there was, like, that fertile cradle, I believe it was called, or fertile crescent. It was, like, where Babylon was and where the first civilization was. That's where I drew my inspiration. It was the only place I drew inspiration. The only thing I was drawing inspiration for was not a lot of the culture, but more of how things worked with fertility. So, think of the Torden Plains as this world's fertile crescent. So, with a little leeway, with a little bit more leeway, with the fact that they had many great harvests, the way Ashia's developed its community was a bit different from the other countries that found themselves being the marketplace of the ancients. They didn't experience a big tragedy or a natural disaster that brought them together to look towards the natural energies of this world. It was just bonding time in the fields. It was really just that. They would spend many hours of the day and with their family, and they would be out in the fields, and they would work as a community towards making another sustainable day. And every night, the city would look to the sky and see at least one moon in its cycle. And this led to a worship of values rather than necessities, as Asian peoples projected their 5 main values onto each moon. The Asian people, Olena, as most of the ancients did from the outer lands, saw how the community was working together and just on their own looked to the moons and actually gave each moon its own purpose. So, to test just exactly how far they would to keep their own values, she sent in a gift. And she sent them a gift, which was the Jackie Pie, and watched what they did for a few years. So it was a newborn Jackie Pie. It was small, didn't give off much light. I should explain what a Jackie Pie is. I swear I'll get to that when we get to the sacred items. It was small, didn't give off much light, and, well, because it didn't have the parental guide that usually how Jackie Pie family dynamics work, it was more or less defenseless. And this was a Jackie Pie that actually had its parents recently hunted in a more northern part of the plains. So Olena sent this lonely Jackie Pie to the Ashians and to see if they would use this as an opportunity to either help or use it to their own gains. So the Ashians took this as a sign of good faith, actually, and nurtured the small creature and gave it a long life, a longer life than it could have had in the northern part of the plains. Olena was pleased to see the care that these people gave to the creature, and started regularly visiting the temple that was built technically for the moons, but soon was to shift to be for her name. She helped the city thrive and only really helped to keep no, that's phrased wrong. She was mostly there. She mostly worked within the 5 pillars of the city, the 5 values. She would help in other aspects, but mostly you would go to Olena when it came to these 5 things. And so the city built quite a particular bond with this god that led to her worship even into the modern day. It's kind of like how the god of death, how Roran, if you remember, was kind of worshipped. Oh dear, I'm blanking on my own god's name. It's not Ki. Oop. Give me... I'm going to open a document. Wim. If you remember, Wim? We, okay? Yeah. We, when, where's. I'm still learning myself. And sometimes I blank. We would go into the town of Orgari and just sit in their pubs and give relief to their illnesses. Not give relief. Would give proper burials. The proper burials. I just need to take a moment. Brain was moving too fast. Would go into the town and lead their dead into the afterlife, so the townspeople can start regulating their energy, because it wasn't their fault that their energy decided to get skewed. So she helped this town to keep their 5 values, and also aided them when conflict arose in the surrounding areas throughout the years, because conflict, unfortunately, seemed to be unavoidable. So, I say before we go into the lasting effects, I'm going to tell you their 5 values and to which moon they associate with. So the moon of Moilia, yeah. No, Moile. Moile was the moon of curiosity. Solrun, yeah. Solrun was the moon of family. Zanov, yes. I swear I practiced these. Zanov is the moon of harvest, and Balbos is the moon of security. And finally, Givis is the moon of names. Now, I think this is a good time to mention a very popular tradition. I don't know if popular is the right name. It's less sacred and more of a common thing. If you notice that names is part of their values, and that is because Ashia has a tradition called gift names and selected names. So when a child is born, the parents will give the child a gift name. This is the name that they will use and all throughout their adolescence, all the way until they reach the adulthood, the turning point of adulthood. Then they can make the decision. Most decide to go and use a selected name. It's rare that someone will continue to use their gifted name, because this is a changing point in their life, and therefore it's time that they feel like names are associated with your identity. And if you keep the same name from your childhood, some might see that as someone who, well, it's seen as two things. It really depends, because this Ashia still in the future turns into a country. So you have the people in the western part of it, northern western part. That's never northern western part. That's just like, if you have your same names, then you're probably holding on to some childhood values. And in the southern eastern part, southern part, if you keep your gifted name, then it's probably for family matters, or it's just a name you really like. And then you have these two areas that are kind of a mixture of both of those. But it's mostly popular to choose a selected name. And the selected name is what you use to show that this is you going into your next stage of life. And then there's also other events that would cause someone to change to gain another selected name, whether that be a high-ranking job, marriage, divorce, really any big life-changing event that feels like you just added either a new aspect of your identity or you're letting a part of you go, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes letting something go can allow you to grow into a better version of yourself. So a common occurrence is like, yeah, this is my second selected name or my first selected name. And that's why there's a moon dedicated to just names, because names are a big part in this country's culture, which you don't really see in actually other countries that ended up taking on the worship of Olena. It was something that's really just giving the moons traits of your country was really just an Asia thing. Just like that tradition. The tradition might pop up into like small pods throughout the continent, and later even islands when people start be able to sail. But that's really because Asians moving. Those pods are Asians going to other countries and settling there, and them keeping, and that culture just taking root into those communities. So now that we know about the moons and have a little insight onto a cultural practice, let's go into lasting effect. Olena was given the title Mother of Jagpie, as even in the modern day, people of Asia viewed her as a protector and a mother figure. Only a few other cities, as I mentioned, that worshipped outside of the country that would become of Asia. It was never quite for the same reason. For the ancient peoples, the other towns that really worshipped Olena, you would mostly see in seaports and coastal areas. And that was just really for the tidal waves and to get a good fishing trip, because a lot of fish in this area, fish follow the tides and the sea currents. So if the moons control the tides, then you probably think they control the sea currents. So they give some prayers up to the moon god, and they get a good fishing trip out of it. These values became part of each moon that mostly observed by the people that lived in that country. I'm just repeating myself because I need to find my spot. And Olena also became more of a mentor, like Rowan, as she stayed mostly in that country. You'll see why. She mostly lives in her temple, and it makes sense most when I tell you how the temple looked. She is also most likely to be found in orphanages, as she works mostly with orphans and the caretakers of orphans, and new parents, and even the odd farmer at times. Her temple still stands strong, and replicas were made as a way to ask for guidance throughout the country. So usually now in the modern time, Asia has bigger cities, and in these cities there are replicas, bigger or smaller, of the real temple that can be found in the original city of Asia, which has been changed, but I forgot to write it down. I'm not going to try and make something up on the spot. I will mention it in the next video. or I'll write it on the map. No, actually, this is a map of the. This is the map I'm constructing for you all to see is a map of the ancient times. So now that has its original name, it's fine. We can cross that bridge when we get to it. Going back to lasting effects, as I have a few last sentences to add. Ashia's main Patreon god became the god of exploration and the god of family. As Olena phased out and became more of her mother role, moon worship continued, but Olena came to for like motherly advice, which is something she was actually perfectly content with, because that is really how she wanted to spend her days, guiding people and making sure that they held up the values they promised to hold. Now we're at the sacred items, and I can now tell you what a jagged pie is. So as you can guess, probably from the pig crew, there's deer antlers. Well, jagged pie are a deer-like creature, as we know them to be, except where you would think the spots of like white and I believe like brown, cartoon deers, those actually give a luminescent glow in the dark that is of the color yellow. The moons have colors too. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not going to get into colors because I'm researching physics right now. Would that be more astronomy? Yeah. But the jagged pie is a deer that glows. Usually this glowing starts right when sundown starts. And that's usually how the Ashians and people who lived in the Tordern Plains track time. Those are two separate things. That's how they track time. That's how you knew that night was upon you. The jagged pie starts glowing. Night's upon you. I should make a rhyme. I'll make a rhyme. Another sacred item, another like sacred things that are associated with Olena is the color yellow. And sunup, which is what we would consider like dawn, early mornings. That's what they would call it. Orphanages and shimon cakes, which is shimon is a plant. I didn't really go into details on how this plant is. It's all leafy. It's a sweet plant. You can just kind of find growing with the like flowers. Usually, if you find the skurin flowers, you'll find shimon near it. So you like harvest the shimon, grind it up, make cakes of it. I'm not a baker. I don't know how cakes work. I think you put salt in cakes. Do you put salt in cakes? I could sworn I've seen my own mom put salt in cakes once. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Now let's go on to the 3 popular offerings. These are usually things that they put onto altars or outside their own doors to hope and gain the favor and get some like advice in the night from Olena. And it's shimon cakes, skurin flowers, which I just mentioned. This is the city's national flower. It's very popular. It grows in abundance in the Tordern Plains. And finally, a family prayer. This isn't any specific prayer. Usually a family would work together to come up with prayer that's specific to them. It's kind of like a family signature. It's the family would choose a value or something that they want to happen in their lifetime together as a family, whether that be like a constant good harvest, usually related back to the main occupation of the household, And so they'll have their prayer. And in the ancient times, the prayer was given to Olena. But now it's given to the god of family. Now, let's get into the temple and why Olena basically just lives there now. Her temple is small. I'm telling you that right now. Compared to what you would think a temple is, it's small. It also resembles a cottage. It's a small, sleek cottage. The main materials are wood, and the grass is like the area of the original city. It's planted grass. I have a restaurant in my area that has actual like plants growing on the roof, and I think that's so cool. And that's actually where I got the idea to put like, that's not just like normal grass just made out normal dead grass roof. It's actual roof with things growing on it. The wood is dark because the trees and Horan plains are more dark in color, and the only really texture and decoration on the wood is just the natural like knots and stuff of the wood. It gives it character. The grass is fresh and seems to be maintained. And that's mostly just because Olena connected her energy to this temple. Therefore, it's safe from most disasters. It's not safe from minor maintenance, so you still need to fix things up from time to time. But it's going to at least come out intact if something horrible happens to the area. Will it be kind of beat up? Sure. Is it intact? Yeah. And that's what's important. And there's small flowers in the grass. Throughout time, seeds landed on the roof and flowers started growing. I want to say flat roof, but now I'm thinking a cottage. It actually doesn't have a flat roof. Kind of has like a curved roof. And that's what I was thinking, like a curve-ish roof. I need to look at pictures of cottages. I just like the word cottage. Constant maintenance is being made because, you know, we can never have too much maintenance, especially with all the humidity coming down from the nearby mountains. I say nearby as if there isn't like this much distance between them and the mountains, but it's kind of just like, woo! It kind of just goes, kind of just goes over the plains. And they have nice weather. That creates nice weather. It's not constantly rainy. They have like light showers in this area. So it's like light showers, thin clouds. Nothing as drastic as the harsh cold rains that Egardia has to deal with. So constant maintenance. But no one decided to update its styles or change the materials. And this is all by request of Olena because she's attached to how the original design was. And she's like, just make sure it's fixed. Don't change anything else. Outside it has a porch swing, and in the back area there's a small community garden, vegetables, fruits, roots, and just a lot of edible food is found in that garden. It's well maintained. Olena spends a lot of her time maintaining this garden. And on the inside, it seems more lived in, like more of a lived-in house than a place of worship. There's cushioned chairs, fireplace, a kitchen, and even a bed. And that's where Olena sleeps. She doesn't really go back to the upper lands. She just stays in the temple. It's a place Olena often visits. I should change that from often visits to she lives here. She often visits the rest of the land, but this is her place of rest. And it's an open place to those without shelter for the night. So, there's not just one bed. There's like the bed that Olena sleeps in, and then there's like some other like pull-out beds and some like cushions and stuff that weary travelers or someone who has found their home to be like naturally destroyed, they can stay in this place until they can find a new place to settle into before they can and start making their way into not fixing their life, but like getting their life back, getting their original life back. And the biggest altar, and there's the biggest, this cottage, temple, contains the biggest altar dedicated to Olena. In this temple, wow, I repeated myself there. And that's where the townspeople put their biggest offerings. And that's what she comes back to, usually from long travels. So that's really the temple. It's one big house for Olena. So, and with that, we finish the original Council of Ancients. Now, the Council of Ancients has 10 seats with 10 gods. But we're going into a new phase called the Neo Ancients. Now, what does that entail? Well, you have to wait until the next video where I clarify that. But the original Council of Ancients, from the beginning times of religion on Proton? Did I call it Proton? Prozen. From the beginning time of Prozen, only had 4 gods. And then we start getting tangled with the Neo-Ancients, which is a oxymoron, but we're going to skedaddle past that. And I'll be clarifying the timeline of all this on my recap video that I'll be doing once I finish off the Ancients. But if you want to hear about the God of Peace and a new island, I say look out for the next video. That, let's not put a day on it, because we all know how that works out. But we're going to do that next week, which is a week in October. And I really hope to see you there. And I just take care. Happy spooky season. And there's, I don't want to do math, 8 days left of Latino Heritage Month. So I'll be looking for stuff during that time, and I'll be posting places to donate on Twitter. So I need to compose that list. But from that, hope you have a great day. See ya.